In Damon Lindelof's Watchmen, Jeremy Irons plays mysterious billionaire Adrian Veidt and has just received his 5th career Emmy nomination. I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby. And Jeremy, first of all, congratulations on your Emmy nomination.
Thank you. It's always nice. I think the Watchmen got 26 nominations, which is amazing. Had I not got one, I would have been a bit peeved.
Yeah, I think you would have been like, geez, everyone else in the whole world, even creative services, got a nomination and I was missed out. But you didn't. You got one. And we're very happy that you're there. So it's going to be a virtual ceremony this year, something a bit different, obviously, with what's going on in the world. Have you got any news yet of how you're going to participate in the show?
No, I think it goes out sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, I think.
Oh.
So I shan't be up for it. I shall probably leave some sort of message and wait and see when I wake up what's happened. But I like my sleep, so I shall not be up at 3 whenever it is.
That's good. I think that's probably smart. Now, Jeremy, Watchmen, as you've probably said in countless interviews, is so ambitious in the way that it tells this story over the course of 9 episodes. But what were your expectations going in before you started shooting? I know you were aware of Damon Lindelof. You might have been aware of the project, but did you expect it to be this insane as it turned out to be?
Well, I think to a certain extent I did. I had a long lunch with Damon Lindelof, and at the end of the 2 hours, when I'd eaten a bit, he'd eaten nothing, but he talked solidly for 2 hours. I thought, this man is either out of his head or a genius. And because I knew of what he'd done before, I thought he's probably a genius. I got some sort of clue about what we were going to make, although not much, because he hadn't written much by then. And in fact, I filmed my sequences, apart from the final 2 episodes, quite separately, in a separate country, indeed, from the rest of the cast. So I didn't meet them until much later on. And I suppose what I was doing was, when I was young, I used to be a long-distance runner when I was at school. And I remember I would just think, just put the next foot in front of the next one. Next foot, put your foot down in front of the other. Put your foot down, just keep going. And to a certain extent, that's what I did with Watchmen. I didn't know quite where I was going, but I just kept going, playing scene by scene, loving what Damon was coming up with as far for the character, which I felt was original and witty and off the wall, and that's very much my humor. So although we were a smallish English group up in North Wales, we had an American director, wonderful director, and it was a lot of fun. That period. Then later I got the final scripts. I got to Atlanta, met the rest of the crew, rest of the actors, and began to see how it was all going to fit together. Yeah. But I suppose you could say I was a bit like somebody making a quilt. You know, I was making my squares and they would be fitted in, and finally, when Damon had finished everything that had been cut together, we'd draw back and we'd see this amazing quilt, which is Watchmen.
Yeah, you know, I have to admit, I didn't really know anything about the story. I was quite puzzled initially by what was going on with Adrian and how it links to what was going on in Tulsa. It really was a bit of a head scratcher for me, but as it started to coalesce, I realized what was going on. And then by the end of it, I was immensely satisfied, even though we end on a cliffhanger of sorts. Were you immensely satisfied with how the story pans out for Adrian? And would you ever go back if there was another season? Not that there will be.
Well, they've asked us that. Damon says he hasn't got another one in him. He doesn't have another story there. And he won't, therefore he doesn't want to do another series. And I think so much hangs upon his writing and his vision that I'd be very nervous about doing one that didn't involve Damon in the second series.
Yeah. You know, I noticed that you spent the first few episodes in the North Welsh countryside in this beautiful old estate, dressed up in glamorous costumes, riding horses. Is that just like lots of fun for someone at your stage in your career? You've done a lot of different things, but that looks like a hell of a lot of fun to do.
A lot of fun, catapulting people up into the
Yeah.
into the atmosphere. Dealing with my clones, and weren't those two actors wonderful, Tom and Sarah, just extraordinary actors, I thought, who played the clones. I wish they'd maybe got a little bit more recognition, because their work was really very subtle and very, very, very fine.
Yeah.
So yes, I did have fun up there. I mean, I'm never happier than when astride a horse. Even sitting in a lake choosing babies. You know, there are worse things. The worst way is to have to pay, to earn your living.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then obviously months later, after the show has finished airing and it's made such an impact, it's, you know, got 26 nominations. A lot of people want to talk about how prescient the show was, like eerily so. It's told in this real sense of urgency and artistry, particularly when it touches themes like racism, identity, and trauma and violence. Did you find that particularly compelling?
I did when I saw the finished program. Yes, I thought it was extraordinary, prescient, and wonderful that it opened America to that period of that particular moment in their history of the putting down the Tulsa Rebellion that nobody knew about. I mean, nobody on the. I think only one person had heard vaguely, and he came from Tulsa. So I think that is very important, that not to allow us to bury our sins, but as you say, absolutely prescient. Things have moved on, but they haven't got to where they have to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, given that Gold Derby
what is wonderful, I think, about the program is that it not only deals with that serious problem of racial inequality and iniquity in America, but also allows us to think about how we control populations, about the desire for power, and then the human emotions within the story. I thought on so many, it really is multi-layered, and to get that sort of writing on television is not something that happens every time. So I think we're right to praise it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just thought it was so compelling. Every single performance, every person behind the camera, incredible work. And I hope it wins a bunch of Emmys. Speaking of Emmys, so you, apart from the one you got to this year, you've actually won more than you've lost Emmys, which is a pretty interesting feat. It doesn't happen very often. You were nominated back in the day when you were a very young, up-and-coming actor for Brideshead Revisited. But then you won for The Great War and you won for Big Cat Week. So your voiceover work gets quite a lot of attention, obviously because you have a distinctive voice. It's very recognizable. What do you say about your voiceover work? I know you've said in the past that it's something that you quite enjoy. Why is that?
I enjoy radio work, and I also enjoy voiceover work. Voiceover work, strange enough, I always accept if it's a subject that I know nothing about and I want to learn about. So I'm really interested in what I'm doing, and I hope that you feel that in the voice, because in a way I'm the connection between what we're seeing on screen and the audience. And I think if that voice is not interested, it's not interesting. So I tend to choose projects about subjects which fascinate me and which I know nothing. But I've also always enjoyed doing radio, because you're using one aspect. You're just communicating on the verbal level, on the sound. I record quite a lot of poetry. I recorded all of T.S. Eliot, for instance.
Yeah.
Because I felt he was a wonderful poet who really touched me, and I thought a lot of people were put off by him on the page. He's quite difficult to deal with on the page. And I thought, if I can record that and make it compelling and interesting, it'll open him up to a much larger audience. So documentaries, the same. If it's a subject which I think is well made and is really interesting, I will do that. It's a sort of sideline. You know, you're not using the other bits of you that you usually use as an actor. Yeah. You're just using that voice, and technically that's interesting.
Yeah,
for me.
You also won, obviously, for Elizabeth I, and you've made some great speeches, by the way, when you won awards. And I remember when you won your Oscar, right, you said, "This is great," and then you thanked your team and your wife, Glenn Close. When you won your Golden Globe for Elizabeth I, the first thing you said was, "This is a nightmare," because you made a great joke about not remembering names and about Ahmed. And it went really well in the room. Do you prepare something interesting or funny when you think you might win an award, or do you just go up there and riff?
I'm afraid I go up and riff. Always the possibility of falling flat on one's face, but I try to get a little list in my head of the people I mustn't forget to thank. I often do forget. I mean, I remember now Meryl Streep. Meryl, I think, is the same. I think she probably thinks about an idea of how she's going to do it. She does wonderful award speeches. But I remember with the French Lieutenant's Woman, she was fantastic. I didn't win, but she did. And this was the Oscars, I think. And she gave the most glorious speech, thanking everybody, finishing up with her nanny. And then she said, no, and at the end she said, and finally I want to thank the most important person. I thought, here I come, it's me. She's going to thank me. And she thanked the nanny. And she never mentioned me. And that was a tough one. But so it's important that you remember everybody if you can. Yeah. But otherwise I just riff and just try and go with the moment. I mean, I tend to do that with speeches. If I have to make speeches on whatever subject, you know, I buff up on the subject. I know what I feel. I know what I want to say. I might make some bullet points just to give me a bit of confidence, which I probably won't look at. And then I get up and talk and hope that it's all right. You know, I find, I don't know about you, you probably have to do this also. I find when you're reading stuff, it sort of deadens it somehow.
Yeah, it does. But like, I always wonder, given you've had plenty of experience up at the podium, does it ever get old? Because people say, oh, everything's a blur and you're so nervous and it's such an amazing experience. Do you still feel that after all these years when you win awards like that?
Well, I don't know. I haven't won one for a bit. I might be cooler now about it. I mean, I remember when I won my Oscar, and I had a bit of warning because the bookies were really on my side. And I thought, well, maybe I'm in with a chance. But it was a blur. I remember I stood up and I kissed everybody within sight. I mean, I kissed Madonna, who was sitting in front of me. Now, I'd never met Madonna. She was sitting next to Michael Jackson. Thank goodness I couldn't get to Michael because I would have kissed him. It was...
I wondered that. I'm like, does he know Michael? Why is he saying hi to Madonna and Michael Jackson? I wondered that.
I know. Purely, I mean, it's just a nightmare. I think what I was doing was just letting my brain sort of calm down a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a strange moment, especially the Oscar, but also the Globe and the Emmy, of course. But for my Emmys, I was only there for the last one, for Elizabeth. I wasn't there for the first two.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what I said, but whatever it was heartfelt and it was in the moment.
That's it. And that's what we want. That's what we expect. When you won your Oscar, I realized, and you thanked Glenn Close, obviously, as your co-star. I realized, you also worked with her in The Real Thing, for which you won your Tony. So you've worked with her a few times, and some of your most award-winning performances have been alongside her. And then, of course, when you won your Emmy, you were next to Helen Mirren. So some really amazing, strong actresses. What's it like to work with people of that caliber? Do they lift your game?
Of course they do. It's like, you know, it's like tennis in that regard. You've got a better player playing opposite you. It lifts you, it really does. And it also makes it a lot more fun. You have to really you know, you're playing for big stakes, and you're playing with people who know what the stakes are. And I sometimes think it's the greats who realize that, who realize how good something can be if we really pull our finger out. And so I enjoy, I mean, I love working with Glenn, I loved working with Meryl, loved working with Robert De Niro. I mean, all those great actors, they make you better, you know, they make you better than you are.
Absolutely. Is it possible for you at this stage of your career to actually say what performance you're most proud of, or is that more of a Sophie's choice where you can't really compare and contrast the performances you've given?
I think it's very difficult to judge your own work. You have to leave it for a long time, and even then, I mean, I remember I saw a movie I made called The Mission years and years ago, I suppose 30 years ago now. I saw about 10 years ago in Los Angeles. They reran it for some reason. And I looked and I saw this young man who looked just like my son, actually. And I thought, oh, that's not me. But I was able to see it more clearly and see the structure of it more clearly. But you can't judge. You know, it's a communication acting. It's a communication between you and the audience. And the only thing that's important is what the audience get. And if they are moved, if they are touched, and because they're all different, they will be moved and touched in different ways, or maybe not at all. And so they're the ones really, I think, who I mean, all my performances when I watch, and it's occasionally that I do, I just see the faults. I see what I would have liked to have done better.
Yeah.
So I'm not really the one. I know the movies I had the most fun on.
Yeah.
I know the actors I love working with the most, the directors I love working with the most, but I can't tell you which is a better performance.
Yeah. And what about this angle? You know, you're known as being an activist in your charity work, and you're quite outspoken about the things that you care about. And I can't stand it when I hear people say, oh, look, he's just an actor. What does he know? He should shut his mouth and just perform. That really bothers me, because a reality TV star can be the president of the United States. So surely actors and performers and accountants and journalists can have opinions too. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm very glad to hear your views on that. I mean, I think actors have to be careful. We can be very useful mouthpieces to great causes which need mouthpieces, but we have to make sure that we are educated completely in what we're talking about. But on a deeper note, we work all over the world. We pretend to be other people. In other words, we get inside other people and see what it feels like to be in that situation, in that period of history, in that social situation now. And so it does educate us and give us it gives us a good education towards what it's like to be other people, to be in other situations. So I would say that we are it's easier for us to be empathetic and to see other people's situations and then think that is unfair. We have to try and do something about that to change that. So I think actors are also, they're quite good at speaking sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of very useful things, a lot of very good reasons why they should front charities or political causes or whatever. I mean, I think of somebody like Vanessa Redgrave, a wonderful actress who was always castigated for putting her political views out. You know, oh, she's just an actress. Well, no, she's not. She's a very political person. You know, she could be an interviewer like you. She could be a politician. She could be a lawyer. It doesn't matter. Whatever we do in life, if we see injustice, if we see things that we think could be changed, could be made better, surely it's up to us to speak out. And perhaps the unfair thing is that, which politicians dislike, is that actors are maybe listened to more than some people would, than politicians would like. When but I think it's important one continues to do so, even though with the current climate. I mean, I tend to have shut my mouth really over the last 6 or 7 years, because with the internet and with Twitter and Facebook and all of that, which I don't do because I'm terrified of it, the world seems to have become rather black and white.
Yeah.
Whereas, of course, we know that all things are murky grey, they're strange, they're difficult, and they need debate. And I was hoping that the internet would allow us to debate as a society. But it seems to have denigrated into something which you're terrified of being reported on.
Yeah, and cancelled, and everything's so polarized.
Yeah, I think that's a huge shame.
Yeah, Jeremy, I really appreciate your time today. Before we let you go, I should let you know and congratulate you on your Gold Derby Award nomination as well. Forget all the Oscars and Emmys. That's no big deal. Gold Derby nomination. Your third one, this time for Watchmen. Congratulations on that too.
Thank you very much.
Everybody go to Gold Derby, make your predictions, and watch all of our great contender chats just like this one with Jeremy.